Hello, the internet. So I'm going to do something a little bit different with this video. First of all, you're not going to be able to see my face because with my stupid iPhone, I can either show my face or show the other side, and it's hard to flip without doing crazy stuff, and I don't like video editing. So, and who cares about my face anyway? So I'm going to do something a little bit different, which is, well, everything on this channel is pretty much different, which is why I don't have any subscribers. So, for those who don't watch it, for the few that get to watch this episode, this series, I'm starting a series, is going to be a whole lot of fun. A year ago, my oldest boy and I decided to do a board game tournament, a bracket tournament, because we had more than 64 games. And we did this because we wanted an excuse to play the games we hadn't played yet, that we'd bought and never played. And the games we liked the most, we wanted to play a little bit more. Plus, we wanted a chance to, be able to decide that we didn't like games and get rid of them. So a year ago, we had 85 total games, of which we played 80. 5 of them got buried underneath other stuff, and we didn't notice them. So we played them this year. Of those 80 that we played last year, 7 of them got voted not just out of the tournament, but out of out of our board game library completely. So this is something I know a lot of gamers have a problem with. How do we decide how to get rid of games? So this was a great way to do it. So here's how the tournament works. We play each game. My oldest boy and I score it on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being this game is god awful. Why do we still have this game? And 10 is this is the greatest game I've ever played in my entire life. Can we get more of games from this developer, please? We rarely do that sometimes. So, but of course, we've got a lot more than 64 games now. We've got 112, or we had 112. And so, before we do the 64 tournament, which is based on the rankings from last year, so all the really good games are mostly there, unless we just bought it this year. But for the games that didn't quite make it in the tournament, and to make it in the tournament this year, required a score of 14 out of 20. So, yeah, well, of course, it's, an 11-year-old and me, so it's, the games we like, and the games we hate, we don't have anymore. So we have a lot of good games, a lot of decent games. Our rankings are going to be subjective. These are the kind of games we like and the kind of games an 11-year-old likes. So that's just the way it is. Some games end up higher up on the list than they should, and some, well, not so much. And we like our deck builders, and we like our engine building games, and so you'll see those games kind of up towards the top. Just to warn you. Make it past the first round, and this number is going to be a very important leader in the tournament. It was a 15.5 before, and then to get to the Sweet 16 was about 16.5. The top 4 was 17.5, etc. But this year we got a little bit more games. We got 112 games. So what do? They can't all fit in a 64 tournament, especially if we don't have rankings for some of the new ones yet. So the ones that either are brand new this year or we found underneath other games last year after we finished our tournament, or games that just didn't quite make the grade to make the top 64. That's what this video is about. We did a play-in tournament. Now here's how the play-in tournament works. Just like before, we play the game and we rate the game. And the game's going to fall into one of 3 categories. Either it's going to rate super low, or even be disqualified for some reason. Any game that rates below a 12 has a chance of not just being knocked out of the tournament, but being knocked out of the library completely. We then vote on whether or not we keep the game. This year, 12 games, we decided it's out of there for whatever reason. A lot of times if a game gets disqualified, it's gone. Sometimes it's disqualified for a reason that maybe we can fix next year, and so we'll keep it. We had a whole bunch of disqualifications this year. So we had the lower tier. Then we have the middle tier of games that some of them are new ones and some of them are old ones that just aren't good enough to fit in the main tournament, and they're going to be that way next year. Some of these are classic games, and some of these games are okay, and we like them enough to keep them, but we don't like them enough to rate them high enough to put them in the main tournament. And of course, there's the newer games that are really good, that have a chance to steal. Here's how that works. At the end of the first round of the 64 round game tournament, um, whichever winning games have the lowest scores can be replaced by the games in the play-ins with the highest scores. Last year, it took a 15.5 on average to make it to the second round. So any game that doesn't score, that scores below a 16, as we're going to see in a moment, it's going to be bad, has the chance of winning its first round matchup, but not making it into the next round. And some of the playing games will take their place. All right, so let's take a look at some of these games. Some of the lower ones I'm not going to go over too much. Bore the heck out of you because, well, the games suck. So why would I talk about games that suck? Why do I want to talk about the good ones? So we're going to start off with some disqualifications. We had a few. We had 3 that got disqualified because they were 3-player games. Masterpiece. No, 2 that because they're 3-player games. Twilight Imperium. And then Heroscope, we lost the rules, so we just print those out. We'll play that game. We'll play those games next year. We'll have to find a 3rd player to play those 2 games. Masterpiece is not worth selling. It's an old game. Twilight Imperium, very good area control game. I've had it for a few years and never played the copy because you can't play it 2-player. It's kind of a heavy game for an 11-year-old. So I've been waiting to play it, and we're gonna have to wait another year. Also. Not making the list, the Kahan America's Trails and Rails also needs to be 3-playered, so we'll try that again next year. It's a good game. I like that one, but it just didn't quite get into the tournament. All right, so the DQs that did not survive, there were 6 of them. So half the games that were one and done were on this list. A few of them were because the game was incomplete, and I either sold the game or threw it out. One was an expansion, Goblin's Lair, and so I sold it for $50. I don't know how long I've had that game, but it's an expansion to the bigger Dungeons & Dragons game, and I didn't have the base game, so out it went. One of the games, I couldn't figure out how to set it up from the rulebook, and that was Total Craig, and so I got rid of it. And then there was Mountaineers. Mountaineers is one I've had for a year or 2, and I've tried to play it several times. And each time I pull it out, I flip through the rule book, and the end of it was the setup said, go to this app instead. And I'm like, at some point you have to be honest with yourself that you are not going to play a game that you own ever. And at that point, there was no point in having that game anymore. It is collecting dust. Just get rid of it, sell it, give it the goodwill, recycle it, take the parts you don't want out and put them into other games, whatever. And so Mountaineers was that game. I bought it because it looked like it had a decent resale, but I couldn't resell it. I thought I would play it. 3D game, it sounded like it'd be fun. And the rules were just god awful. I gave up on it. All right, and then we have the ones that scored low, 12 and below. And you can see we sold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. Some of them we kept because the classics or they have no value or whatnot. So you can see a lot of classic games down here and a lot of, little Bubbly Pop's a little kiddie game. And most of the rest of these are pretty much classic games like Jenga. 6 Cubes is kind of a smaller game. And then we get up towards the ones, the 13s that survive. But they'll be in the plans next year. I was a little sad that Hero Quest fell down into that. First time we had actually played it. Playing it 2 players is weird because one person actually is playing the game and the other person's running the game. And my kid played with one character, which is not supposed to be the way you play that game. And he died pretty quickly. So he rated it down a little bit. Maybe next year we'll change it, adjust it a little bit, adjust the rules a little bit, and hopefully it'll go up the thing. One thing I do want to note for games that have multiple versions, like Monopoly, if the multiple versions are vastly different, so that the gameplay is different, like Space Jam Monopoly versus normal Monopoly, we'll play both versions. If it's just cosmetic, we'll just play the one. So for Power Grid, we have the expansion, one of the expansions, but it's basically the same game with just a different map and some slightly different rules. So it doesn't really change the game much. Our Ticket to Ride games, which you'll find in the round of 64, we do in fact play multiple versions of that because we've got 4 different boxes of the game. In the case where there's 2 games in a box, we only play the game of the 2 that we like the best. So for example, the one with France and the Wild West, we've never played the France one, to be honest, because my kid looked at that and was like, no, I don't want to play that one. So we only do the Wild West. For the one with India and Switzerland, I'll be honest, the Switzerland map is one that's too easy to break. So it kind of loses its fun. So we play the India one, which is way more balanced. All right, so there's a couple deck builders in here. We love our deck builders, but these deck builders just did not fit the grade. I was a little shocked at how much I didn't like Rune Age. We tried to play the co-op version, and we got obliterated right away. I mean, it was like Dark Souls on steroids, and I was like, no, I'm not playing that. Get rid of it. All right, so now let's move up to some of the better ones that might make the tournament of 64 next year. So there are 14s and 15s in here. So a lot of these are new games that we just recently got that weren't as good as some of the other ones. Like Villainous, decent game, but not a great game. It's kind of fun. They're just kind of cute games. We wanted to keep them. A 14 we could, in theory, vote off the end, but it's less likely to do so. Usually it's got to be one person really hates the game. Usually my kid hates the game, that it's gone. So now we get to the top of the list. These are the games that are going to probably make it into the main tournament. Our winner of the plan, and I kind of had to cheat a bit because I actually just bought this game. I'm doing this in January, in mid-January. We had actually started the round of 64 at early January. Now I'm going to be posting this video at the end of February because of the sports tournament. The kind of coincide with that. We only play about 4 games a week, one a day when we're not super busy. And so around 16 games takes 4 weeks. Don't expect these videos to come out all the time. So we'll have this one come out end of February, and then we'll have a couple of the round of 64, the portions of that done by the time we hit February. So the first couple of videos will every week or two. And then after that, it'll be a couple weeks. So this is going to go through June, July, just to be honest with you. But I had to kind of cheat with Power Grid because I put it in there. It's like, okay, we're gonna add one more game to the plan because this game is awesome. I rated 17.7. Would have put it at 4th place last year. So this game is not just going to make the tournament for sure. And I could say that for sure because we played about the first 9 games of the main tournament, and there has already been a winner that was well under 17.7. And so that team's going to be probably out. But Power Grid, for those that don't know, it's a Rio Grande game. It's a really good game. It is a straight up strategy game. It's a game where the whoever's winning gets nerfed a little bit. So it tries to keep the people who are not quite in it in the game a little bit more, unless you really mess up your strategy. And there's a little bit of a bluffing aspect with buying the power stations, and you have to plan short term and long term. It's just a really fun game. I really like it. It's one of my more favorite games. And so it rated pretty high up there. My kid liked it because he likes the strategy games too. And you look at Power Grid and you're probably looking at the board game and going, you're getting an 11-year-old to play that? I'm like, yeah, he's pretty advanced. So that game was awesome. And second place was also a Rio Grande game. So we like our Rio Grande games. We've got, I think, 6 of them, and they all do pretty well, even the worst one. Jump Drive, for those who don't know, it is a streamlined version of Race to the Galaxy, sort of like San Juan is a streamlined version of Puerto Rico. It is an engine building game. It is a lot of fun. It is quick to play. There are 2 cards in the game that we have banned, though, because they're just overpowered. But it's just a fun, really easy game to play, very easy to figure out. The rule book's like 2 pages, and when you see a game with a rule book with 2 pages, usually like, sometimes you're like, oh god, this game's such a light game. And this, I mean, it's not a super light game. It's not super heavy either. So it's just a really fun game. Tied for third is a Gargoyles, which is more of a kiddie game, but my kids, I actually got my youngest boy to play it, which is crazy. And so they're like that game. It's kind of a 3D game. It's kind of a dungeon crawler kind of game. Nadu is from Cryptozoic, which is a very, very good card game company. They make a lot of deck builder games, and all of their deck builder games are just ridiculously good. We love most of them. This one was the one we liked the best, I think. At least I liked it the best. So, ridiculously good deck building game. So those 4 games will definitely make the tournament. First Class is a work replacement kind of game, strategy game. It's pretty fun. And then we got a whole bunch of them that scored in the 16. So we have the top 5, 16.75 above. Those ones are pretty much going to get in because, 16th place last year was 16.5. So those are ones that, could vie for the Sweet 16. And then we got the 4 that scored 16. So they probably will make it, but not guaranteed to make it in. And I cheat a little bit. Some of the games I have digital versions of the board game because it's a lot cheaper to buy the digital, and sometimes it's a lot easier to play on a computer than to play physical, and a lot quicker. So I've got Wingspan and Lords of Waterdeep, the digital versions of those. That scored a 16. A lot of people really love Wingspan. We like it. It's a decent game. It's not my favorite, but it's a good game. First Light is a strategy work replacement kind of game. The kind of game I really like. It's kind of similar to Lords of Waterdeep with some other mechanics. So it got up there, which made me very happy because last year it didn't. My kid hated it last year, but this year he's a little bit older. He's a little bit more okay with strategy. It overwhelmed him the first time he played it because there's a lot of moving parts in that game. There's a lot of choices that you could make, and so this year wasn't quite so bad for him. So some of these games, over time, you play them over and over, they're going to move up the list. Some of them are going to move down the list, and at some point you're going to want to kick them out because at some point the game just gets boring after you play it 4 or 5 times. And this is another way for you to check on that and to get rid of it if you don't like it anymore. And then Bellum Magica is kind of similar to First Light and Lords of Waterdeep. It's a work replacement kind of game. Kind of fun game. So those ones will probably move on. We did have 115.5, which normally would possibly vie, but we voted this one off the island, which is kind of weird that we voted a 15.5 off. Street Fighter is a deck building game by Cryptozoic, but it is out of all the Cryptozoic games we have, which is like 6 at this point. It was our least favorite, and my brother is a huge Street Fighter fan from back in the day. So I gave it to him as a Christmas gift. So because I was like, this just screamed my brother. So it was given away. So that was one of the 12 that technically didn't survive, but not because it was terrible, but because we have a lot of better games that are the same kind of game, same company. At some point, you start to see that there are certain companies that you really like. For me, it's Avalon Hill, Cryptozoic, and Rio Grande. And we kind of like Steven Jackson, but most of those end up being about rated 14. So they're okay. So that is the playing round. Those are the games those are the ones that are probably the top 9 are probably going to move on. So the 8-9 seeds better watch out. The 7-10 seeds better watch out. Otherwise, they are going to be replaced. And of course, we got rid of 12 games that we decided we didn't like or were incomplete, or just look at the rules and it's like, there's no way I'm ever playing this game. Or in one case, there was a Time Agent. I liked the game, but my kid absolutely hated it. And so it was obvious we're never going to play that game again. He doesn't want to play that game again, and so there's no reason to have that game. So just get rid of it. In part because Time Agent was a 3-hour game, and he didn't the time. Some of the games with that take a long time sort of exceed his attention span. So and not because he's a millennial and on the 3 hours is a lot of time. Most adults have a hard time with that long of a game. So. And so some of the shorter games get bumped up the list, as well. So, but that's it for the playing rounds, and we'll see which one of these actually make it, and which ones don't. And then the rest of them we'll see again next year, except for the 12 that are out. And of course, the ones on the 64 are already ones that are at least a 14. So those are ones that are not really at risk of being kicked off the tournament. They'll probably, most likely, if they do badly, and there's a couple that have already done that because we've played the first few, that will be, relegated to the play-ins next round. And if you see all of these ones, above 14 and a half, there's 15, but of course we got rid of one, so 14 new games that are 14 and a half or better. That means in order to make the top 64, you're probably going to need to be 14 and a half, 15 this year. So lots of decent games we've got. And we'll keep playing, and hopefully some of you, a whole 3 or 4 of you that watched this video, will actually enjoy the video, and maybe it'll encourage you to buy a game or two. I don't know. I don't care about that. But hopefully you have a little bit of fun watching and, kind of an interesting little tournament. So this was the playing round of the Spring Insanity Board Game Bracket Tournament. And we'll see you on the next video, which I'll be recording in probably another 2 weeks and posting in a month and a half. So kind of a weird thing. Goodbye.